and that is over the future of Iraq. Last year on this program, we were talking about Syria, and at that time you said there was no clear-cut American interest. Do you see a clear-cut American interest in Iraq?
I see mostly confusion and chaos, and I think some of the chaos is created from getting involved in the Syrian civil war. You have to realize that some of the Islamic rebels that we've been supporting are actually allies of the group that is now in Iraq causing all this trouble. But I see that in the Syrian civil war, we're sending arms and opposing Iranian proxies. Now some people want us to get involved, allied with Iranian Guard, even maybe fighting alongside.
Well, before you get to that, ISIS as a terrorist organization has been billed by many as a clear and present danger to the United States, as a terrorist actor. Do you see that?
I look at it on a personal basis. I ask, do I want to send one of my sons or your son to fight to regain Mosul? And I think, well, yeah, these are nasty terrorists. Should we want to kill them? But I think, who should want to stop them more? Maybe the people who live there. Should not the Shiites, the Maliki government, should they not stand up? And if they're ripping their uniforms off and fleeing, if they don't think Mosul's worth saving, how am I going to convince my son or your son to die for Mosul? I know they're bad terrorists, and yes, we should prevent them from exporting terror, but I'm not so sure where the clear-cut American interest is.
Well, is the clear-cut American interest to protect America if these are terrorists who designed to hit America?
Right. Well, I think if they are, then maybe we shouldn't be funding their allies and supporting them in Syria. You see, they're emboldened because we've been supporting them. It could be that Assad had wiped these people out months ago. So what we do is we get in a confusing situation, and I personally believe that this group would not be in Iraq and would not be as powerful had we not been supplying their allies in the war, as well as our allies are funding these people. They probably have weapons that were bought either with Saudi money or Kuwaiti money or Qatar money. A lot of the radicals have been getting arms and money from these countries.
So do you support the president who says, like you do, look, the Iraqis should stand up and fight them, but he also wants to send 300 advisors there to help out?
I don't question the 300 advisors for this reason. I'm not sure exactly where they're going or what they're doing. I do think that we have an embassy there, and we've got 1,000, 2,000 people there, that yes, we have to defend our embassy. So I'm not going to nitpick the president and say, oh, you shouldn't send in a certain amount of advisors. And the military decisions of protecting the embassy, to me, are very important. I've been talking a lot about Benghazi and how we didn't protect them, so I'm not going to get involved or criticize the president for trying to protect our embassy there.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney has been quite critical of this president. He wrote an op-ed this week in which he said, in part, rarely has a U.S. president been so wrong about so much at the expense of so many. Too many times to count, Mr. Obama has told us he is ending the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan as though wishing makes it so. Do you think Dick Cheney is a credible critic of this president?
I think the same questions could be asked of those who supported the Iraq war. You know, were they right in their predictions? Were there weapons of mass destruction there? That's what the war was sold on. Was democracy easily achievable? Was the war won in 2005 when many of these people said it was won? They didn't really, I think, understand the civil war that would break out. And what's going on now, I don't blame on President Obama. Has he really got the solution? Maybe there is no solution. But I do blame the Iraq war on the chaos that is in the Middle East. I also blame those who are for the Iraq war for emboldening Iran. These are the same people now who are petrified of what Iran may become, and I understand some of their worry.
You're not a Dick Cheney Republican when it comes to American power in the Middle East.
What I would say is that the war emboldened Iran. Iran is much more of a threat because of the Iraq war than they were before. Before there was a standoff between Sunnis and Shiites. Now there is Iranian hegemony throughout the region.
Has President Obama made America less safe?
I don't
and
think
less respected in that part of the world?
Yeah. I don't think I would put it that way. I disagree with the president. I disagree with him on the Libyan incursion and with arming the Syrian rebels. With ending the war in Iraq, I've been trying to end it for years. In fact, you know, one of the important constitutional questions here is what authority does anyone have to go to war in Iraq? I've been trying to take that authority away. I introduced a vote in the Senate about a year or two ago, and we only got about 33, 34 votes to end the war, even though it's over. But here's my point is that can one generation bind another generation? Can the people you elected in 2002 who voted to go to war in 2002, does that bind us forever? Are we at war forever? No geographic limit and no temporal or time limit on this? I think there has to be a limit, and that if we go to war again, and I'm not saying we never go to war. That's why I've even said I don't rule out airstrikes. But if we're going to go to war, there needs to be a vote of the American people through their representatives. We need to have a consensus that, yes, it is worth dying to regain Mosul, even though the Shiites and the people who live there are not willing to fight for it.
You have blamed Republicans and Democrats over the past 10 plus years for the prosecution of foreign policy. That would include Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. If she's a candidate for president, and if you're a candidate for president, is this the main argument against her candidacy in a campaign by you?
I think if you want to be commander-in-chief, the bar you have to cross is, will you defend the country? Will you provide adequate security? And that's why Benghazi is not a political question for me. To me, it's not the talking points. That's never been the most important part of Benghazi. It's the 6 months leading up to Benghazi where there were multiple requests for more security, and it never came. This was under Hillary Clinton's watch. She will have to overcome that, and we will make her answer for Benghazi.
Let me turn to some domestic matters. On the issue of immigration, big issue in the Republican Party right now, Eric Cantor losing in part because of that. A lot of Tea Party